Oh, okay. All right. Hi. Hi. Yeah. So I had a question from a student regarding a bit more clarification on the three key doctrines that are called the marks of existence that I have there on the teachings of the Buddha. Okay. Remember the three characteristic or fundamental marks, attributes, qualities of existence itself. Okay. Those three key doctrines. That is the doctrine of impermanence, okay, the doctrine of no soul, and the doctrine of suffering. All right, and so they are very foundational to what the Buddha taught. So just again to clarify, with the doctrine of impermanence, is it's to counter. It actually counters what we usually think about reality out there, the world out there, that we think it consists of solid, unchanging material objects that are sort of made up of some kind of a substance that doesn't change, as though wood is actually a solid, unchanging substance of wood, that this body is sort of an unchanging substance of flesh and, blood and bone and everything else, right? Or whatever it is, that everything is sort of made of unchanging substances. Okay, so that, and we come to that conclusion because we have that experience. Our experience is that this table is a wooden table. It's here as wood today, yesterday, the day before, and it will be there tomorrow. We have the experience of continuity, that it doesn't seem to change in my interaction with this object of a wooden table. Right? Same thing when I look in the mirror. It seems like, well, that's the same person always there, as though I am some kind of unchanging, permanent substance that I encounter, again and again and again. All right. So based on our experience of what I like to call our experience of continuity, that it seems to be the same kind of thing that I encounter out there day after day after day, and it doesn't seem to change a whole lot, right? We then draw the conclusion that it's because these different things, objects, people, what have you, are actually made up of permanent, solid, unchanging substances. Like when you think of a rock, it's like this substance, hard thing that doesn't change. That's the conclusion we draw from our experience of things. So what the Buddha teaches here is he says, wow, we are drawing the wrong conclusion from this experience. From his experience of enlightenment, where he was able, through meditation, penetrate, just pierce through and see the truth about reality, he came to the conclusion that there is no permanent, solid, unchanging substance that is the basis of this table, of me, of you, of anything else. That instead, everything is in constant flow of change. It's like a constant process of change that we usually can't see. So a metaphor that I don't think I brought up, I can't remember now, but it is in a video that somebody else does, that is sometimes used in Buddhism, is, for example, I sit here in this chair as I am now, and I try not to change, not to move, not to do anything that creates change. Well, inevitably, change will happen. Inevitably, I will get old. I will be in agony and pain. It will cripple me. I won't be able to walk if I sit in this chair and don't move for 20, 30 years if I'm still alive. Eventually, I'm going to die. Eventually, this flesh will rot and fall off, right? And I'll just be a bag of bones on this chair. But even the chair itself, over time, will deteriorate, rot, and fall apart. So even if we try not to bring about change, make things change, change happens, okay? Things are in some kind of a state of process continually, no matter what we do, no matter what, everything, there is a process and flow, movement happening. So nothing is unchanging. Nothing is solid and unchanging. That's number one. Number two, okay, in terms of the doctrine of impermanence. Well then, and that's why he rejected the concept of Brahman, the supreme being, like what we saw in Hinduism, as though the supreme being is the source of the universe, the essence of all that is. God, the supreme being, is unchanging, eternal, infinite, right? The absolute that really doesn't change, or is eternal, is permanent, right? That's normally what we think of, to use the word God. Well, here, the Buddha rejects that. He says there is no such thing. There is no permanent, unchanging absolute that we can call God, nor is there anything that's permanent or unchanging about reality out there, okay, about the world, okay, the universe, okay, nature. Okay? Then he also applies that to the self. He says there's nothing about the self within the self that is permanent, eternal, unchanging, substance, solid, never changes, and is eternal, right? That is usually what we humans have thought and have called a soul. That what we call a soul is usually what we think of as something that is eternal, is permanent. It doesn't change. The soul, it may take on this particular life form in terms of incarnation, but then when it leaves, the soul itself is something so pure, so something non-material in terms of having attributes and changes and whatnot. It is eternal. It is permanent. It is unchanging, right? That's usually what we thought of as soul, Atma. And the Buddha, just as he rejected about there being anything permanent to the world, he also said there's nothing about the self that is permanent and unchanging and eternal or anything like that. That's why it's a doctrine of no soul. He says, yes, the body, the self, is made up of the 5 parts. This physical body, material body, right? Feelings and sensations, our perceptions of things, the will, karmic formation, our will, like, oh, I want this, I don't want that. And then, of course, consciousness. And he held that all 5 of those things, even consciousness, at death, cease to exist. So there's nothing permanent about the self. Okay. And that's what's meant by the doctrine of no soul. So he kind of rejected key ideas that were central to Hinduism, really. The idea of an eternal supreme being, i.e. God, Brahman, whatever the name you want to give God. And then also within the self, there's something like a soul or spirit that also is eternal and unchanging. Even if it's incarnated in this body, the soul is unchanging. Okay. It's just attached to this physical form, but it leaves this physical form. Okay. So hopefully that kind of clears that up. So based on those 2 ideas, that there's nothing permanent, unchanging in the world out there, there's nothing permanent about the self, he then goes on to the 3rd doctrine. The 3rd one, the doctrine of suffering, is actually a result, okay, comes about, we suffer because we believe the wrong things. We believe and think that there are things out there that are solid and changing. And we believe and think that there is something about the self that is solid, permanent, unchanging, okay, in some way. And because of those beliefs, we create our own suffering. How does that work? Well, it's because I believe that, oh, I want to find the love of my life, the most perfect man or woman, all right, whoever, and it's going to be my ideal mate, and I'm going to fall in love with them, marry them, and I'm going to live happily ever after. Well, you find that wonderful person, and guess what? Oh, doctrine of impermanence. Things change. 10, 20 years down the road, it's like, I can't stand this person. What did I ever see in them? Why did I marry them? Right? Because there is change. So then we experience suffering. We get disappointed because things don't last. That love does not last. You get the perfect dream job, or you make all this money, right? And then what happens? There is change, right? You get laid off from that job, all right? Or the people, as a boss that comes in that you can't stand and now you hate it, or coworkers. You go bankrupt, you lose all your wealth, you get sued, or something terrible. You get in a car accident and you're crippled. Wow, stuff happens. So there's change. And so what you wanted gets taken away from you. You lose it. Okay. And instead, you end up getting what you don't want. You were healthy, and then the next day you're not healthy, right? You're sick, or you get cancer, or what have you. So because of our wanting this and not wanting that, we may get what we want, but it's not going to last. It's not going to last. We'll end up being disappointed. We'll end up getting hurt. And we'll also end up getting frustrated over not getting what we ever wanted. And instead, we get what we don't want. And so we're in a state of suffering, state of suffering. Okay. There'll be constant frustration because we're always hoping, believing that we can hold on to something solid and unchanging, that happiness, that wealth, that success, whatever it is. Okay. We think we can grasp it and hold on to it, and it will not change. We're going to get disappointed. Okay. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of it. All right. Those three doctrines. Hopefully this helps just to understand it better. Let me know. Okay. So yeah, I think I don't know. I'll end that there, but we can always talk about it a bit more in a live call if you want. All right. Okay. So keep cool. Ciao.